Alright, we're going to go over the review today. We're going to start at the top here. So, I know some people had some confusion over this yesterday, but when we're working with adding or subtracting, we're combining our like terms. When we're working with adding, we want to change subtraction to addition, and then change the signs of the next pieces inside that parentheses. We have to change all of them. From there, we're looking for like terms. So I can see that 2x to the fourth and negative 8x to the fourth are like terms, so I'm going to combine those. I'm only combining the coefficients. I do nothing with the exponents. So I would have negative 6x to the fourth. Remember, we want these in standard form, so we want the exponents to go from highest to lowest. So from there, my next highest exponent is going to be to the third power. So I'm going to do negative x to the third because I don't see.
All report to your 4th hour class. Do not go to lunch unless your 4th hour teacher tells you to. All 8th graders go to 4th hour.
Sorry about that. I don't see any other x cubed terms, so I have nothing to combine them with. Now x squared, I have plus x squared plus negative 6x squared. So that's going to be negative 5x squared. Okay, so I'm done with that. And then finally I have plus 6x, so I'll just put that here. And then check to see if it's in standard form. If it looks good, that should be your answer. Okay, so number 2, very similar. I'm going to change subtraction to addition here. Change the sign of the entire piece there. Okay, look for like terms. So I have 6v to the second plus negative 3v to the second. So that's going to be 3v to the second. Then I have 6v and negative 2v. So that would be plus 4v. And finally, 4 plus 7, which would be 11. Luckily, 3 and 4 are already addition, so I'm just looking for my like terms. Okay, I got 2p to the fourth and negative 8p to the fourth, so that's going to be negative 6p to the fourth. Then I have 6p to the second and 6p to the second, so that's going to be 12p to the second. And finally, oh, I skipped a couple, so I'm going to have to erase here. I skipped a cubed term. So I'll erase this. Oh, that's the smallest eraser ever. Go back to my pen here. So we want our cubed term here. Do we have cubed terms over here? We don't, so it would just be 5p cubed. Then I could do my squared term, so plus 12p squared. And then I have a 2p there. So that would be the answer there. And finally, our last one, looking for any like terms. There's no other cubed terms, so I'm going to have negative 3k cubed. And then 7k squared and 8k squared would make 15k squared. And then 4k and 6k would make 10k. And then I have the constant of 3. Kind of ran off the page there. Alright. I'll probably pause it here. See if you have any questions. Moving on, now we are multiplying these binomials. I think they're all binomials on this page. Remember, there's multiple ways you can multiply. We can use the FOIL method, we can use the table method, or we can use distributive property, and they all work on a binomial times a binomial. So I'm going to start with FOIL. So I have 2a times 6a squared. So that's my f in FOIL. That's going to be 12a squared. Then I have my outer. So I'm going to have these outer pieces. 2a times 6 was going to be 12a. And then I have my inner, which is negative 2 times 6a, which is negative 12a. Okay, and then I have my last, which is negative 2 times 6, which is negative 12. Okay, So combine any like terms you had. You can do that ahead of time if you want. These are going to cancel, so we end up with 12a squared minus 12. Okay. Moving on to number 6. We have first 8n squared. Outer 8n times negative 4 is going to be negative 32n. And then negative 7 times n is going to be negative 7n. And then last is going to be negative 7 times negative 4, which will be positive 28. So then, combine like terms. Negative 32n minus 7n is the same as negative 32n plus negative 7n. So we're going to have negative 39n. Oops. Plus 28. Alright, I know some people aren't huge fans of the FOIL, so I'll do a couple that are not in FOIL. So 8p, and we're going to multiply that by 4p minus 5. And then we're going to add 2 times 4p minus 5. Okay, so now we're just distributing. So this comes here, so we would have 32p, p squared. And then here we would have negative 40p. Then we got to do the same thing here, so then we would have 8p and then negative 10. So then to combine our like terms, I'm going to kind of write it in the middle here, put it in standard form, so 32p squared. Combine my like terms, so I'd have negative 32p minus 10. Okay. Here we'll have 4x times 5k plus 1, and then plus negative 5 times 5k plus 1. Distribute, we'll get 20k here, 20k squared, and then plus 4k, and then minus 25k minus 5. So combine your like terms, 20k squared, running out of room here, minus 21k minus 5. Alright, we can do the table here for some people. So this is going to be x squared, this would be negative 3x, this would be x, and this would be negative 3. Combine any like terms you have, so these two are like terms, so we'd have x squared minus 2x minus 3. Going back to FOIL, my first is going to be 24n squared. My outer is going to be negative 12n. My inner is going to be positive 16n. And then my last is going to be negative 8. So simplify here. So I have a positive 16n plus a negative 12n, which is going to be a positive 4n minus 8. Okay, so here we'll have, I might not have my pen. Oh, let me get my pen back. First would be 42m squared. Outer is going to be 14m. Inner is going to be 56m, no, 48. And the problem with doing it as a recording is you guys would have helped me with that and I wouldn't have made that mistake. And then last will be 16. Combine your like terms. we'd have 52m? No, 62m, right? Yeah. 48 plus 14, 10, 58, and then add 4 would be 62. Plus 16. Outside of math class, I struggle with math. Just kidding. 7r squared first. Outer is 2r. Inner is, there's our 7 times 8, which is, and this recording thing is in my way, 56 r plus 16. Then combine your like terms, 7r squared plus 58r plus 16. Okay, going on. So some people asked a question yesterday, how are these any different? They're not. They are not different. You could do them the exact same way. They are our special case scenarios, so there is a shortcut that works with all of these. We will talk about these in class, so we'll come back to these, kind of because the video is just getting a little long and I want to get through some of the factoring pieces, but we'll come back and talk about these. But if you were to just FOIL these, they would work the exact same way as the previous ones we just did. Alright, so now we're to factoring, and we are going to factor out a GCF. So we're actually not going to factor these first few completely. We're just factoring out the GCF, which we started doing before our quiz. So the GCF of number 17 is going to be 5p, because the GCF of 35 and 45 is 5. And then we have p cubed, p squared, and p, so we're going to pull out a p from there. So if we divide out what we have here, 30p cubed divided by 5p is going to be 6p squared. Then 5p squared divided by 5p would just be p. And then 45 divided by 5p is going to be 9. And from there, it's not asking you to factor completely, so you can leave it like that. It just wants you to factor that GCF out. Okay, so our GCF here is going to be 7. So we'd have 6r cubed minus 2r plus 7. Again, that's all they wanted. Here, our GCF would be 10. So we have 9v to the 4th plus 2v minus 6. Here, we're looking for what our GCF is, so it looks like it's going to be 8. We have 3x to the 4th minus 6y plus 10. Here, we got to check. So 7 is going to be our number, because 21, 7, 63. We're going to have a factor of 7. But then we also have y's in all of these that we can factor out. So 21y x to the 4th, we're going to end up with 3x to the 4th. 7 divided by 7, that cancels, and y divided by y, that cancels, so we're just left with an x. And then 63 divided by 7 is 9, y divided by y is done. So there we go. That one was probably kind of tricky. We haven't seen that yet. And it happens again in 22. So we have, we'll pull out an 8 here, and we should also pull out a y. I almost forgot there, because we have a y to the 3rd here, y here, and y here. So this is going to be y to the 2nd plus 7x, because we pull out that y, and then 6, and then we pull out the y. So that's all you're needing. If it asked you to factor this completely, you could, well, you couldn't, because you have a y and an x here. Alright, still moving on. Okay, so we have, now we're factoring completely. Okay, we got to check for a GCF. This first one we don't have a GCF, so we're just going to factor. So I have my two pieces here, P and P. I see that my signs are going to be the same, so I have plus and plus. Factor of 8, that can get me, that I could add up to 6, is going to be 2 and 4. So that is factored. Okay. Then we have this one. We're going to do the same thing. We don't have a GCF. This one we have different signs based on this sign right there. So this is going to be plus minus. So I need a factor of 8 that is going to subtract to give me 2. So that's going to be 4 and 2. I know I need a negative 2. So my 4 needs to go with my negative and my 2 needs to go with my positive. All right, 25 and 26, we've hit a point where now we have no longer a 1 in front of our squared term. So we have coefficients here. Our leading coefficient is not 1. So we're going to, if you notice here, we can factor out a 4 there, and then we can factor from there. So this time we're going to use the GCF to help us factor. So we're going to factor out a 4. We're left with 11x plus 24. So then we can factor this. So we have the same signs because C is positive. They're going to be negative. We need a factor of 24 that will add up to 11. So we got to think about that. We'll get 3 and 8, and then we are done. And we want that 4 out in front. Don't take this away. Okay. Here we're going to factor out that 3. So this would be 8a plus 7. And then we can factor that trinomial. Plus plus, so 7 and 1. All right, good stuff there. Moving on. Now we're factoring and finding those roots that we talked about before. Okay, so we're going to factor first. We're always looking to see if we have a GCF, and then we're going to find the roots. So I'm going to factor here. I don't seem to have a GCF. I can look to see if there's any special occasion here. Doesn't seem like that's the case, so I'm just going to go ahead and factor. Remember, you can always just factor. You don't have to check for that special piece, but it's good to check. So there are going to be different signs. We're trying to find a factor of 24 that's going to subtract and give you 2. And we want it to be a positive 2. So factors of 24 that I can think of, 2 and 12, that probably wouldn't work. We have 8 and 3, that doesn't seem to work. Trying to think of some other ones off the top of my head. 4 and 6, there we go. So 6 is going to be my positive and 4 here. So now I want to find the roots. Remember, those are going to be where it hits the x-axis on your graph. So 6 plus n plus 6 equals 0 and n minus 4 equals 0. So my roots are going to be negative 6 and, oops, positive 4. Let's ignore that. Okay, same thing here. We don't have a GCF. Doesn't seem like those are perfect squares. So these are the same sign. We need a factor of 56. It's going to add to 15. Okay, so we got 2 and 28. That's not going to work. They got to be closer together. 8 and 7. That seems to work. So m minus 8 equals 0, and m minus 7 equals 0. So m is going to equal 8, and m is going to equal 7. And you would need both of those. Okay, same thing. No GCF, no perfect squares, minus minus. Factor of 21 that's going to add up to 10 is going to be 3 and 7. So we'd have p minus 3 equals 0 and p minus 7 equals 0. So p is equal to 3 and p is equal to 7. Okay, 30. 30 is a little tricky, okay? you have to be able to see here, I can pull out an x. I have a GCF of x. And most people miss that. They try to figure out how to factor that without pulling out that GCF. That's going to make things really hard. So I would just end up with x times x plus 2 equals 0. So then x would equal 0, and x plus 2 would equal 0, so x would equal negative 2. Alright, 31 through 34, we don't have 0 on the right side, so we're going to have to rearrange a few things to make it that way. So I'm going to add 8 here. So I have p squared plus 5p plus 4 equals 0. Now I can factor. No GCF. I actually do have perfect squares here, so that should give me a hint. Okay, but it's not the difference of perfect squares, so might have to relook at that. It doesn't look like that's going to work, so it's just going to be plus plus, and 4 and 1 are going to be our factors there. So p plus 1 equals 0, p plus 4 equals 0. So p is going to equal negative 1, and p is going to equal negative 4. Again, I have to add 6 here to both sides to get that to equal 0. So I have x squared plus 9x plus 8 equals 0. Then I can factor. I don't have a GCF, so x looks like 8 and 1. So x would be negative 1 just because I ran out of room, and x would be negative 8. Okay, kind of coming towards the end here. I know this is getting kind of long-winded, but we're kind of going through it over. We'll be pausing as we go through. So we got b squared minus 3b plus 0 actually equals 0. So really what we have is b squared minus 3b equals 0. So again, we should go to check for a GCF. We're going to pull out a b. We'll have b minus 3 equals 0. So that means b is going to equal 0, and b is going to equal 3. Just running out of room. Move this here. Last one, we're going to add 7. We got n squared minus n minus 30 equals 0. No GCF. So factor n and n. So I need a factors of 30 that will give me 1, and they're going to be different. So I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to probably go with 5 and 6. I need 6 to be negative there. So my roots would be negative 5 and 6. Awesome. So we'll probably talk about any questions you have, but I think we're good to go there. Hopefully we're ready for that test tomorrow.